And welcome back to another NBA Sesh. Avi, there's a lot to talk about tonight. And I feel like we kind of, we had a little hiatus. I feel like we took a week off, right? Was it a week?
Weren't we supposed to have a little jingle?
That was on you, man. You were supposed to arrange that.
I'm,
You didn't.
I'm working on that.
Mm-hmm. We'll see. Anyway, I want to talk about real quick what happened in Chicago with Jerry Krause. I can't believe it, but they were booing the guy. And listen, I think why they were booing him is because of the Last Dance documentary. And Jordan doesn't like him. Jordan didn't like him. And they had their differences, of course. And I think but you can't even blame Michael Jordan really, because even though Michael Jordan said that he didn't like him and it showed that he picked on him, if anything, that would make Michael Jordan look bad. And Jerry Krause, he was the responsible for why Chicago had such an amazing team and got 2 3-peats, had 6 championships. And Michael Jordan was really angry with Jerry Krause because he said, Jerry Krause said that organizations win championships, not just players or not the players. And Michael Jordan's like, no, it's the players. But why is it so hard for both to admit that, yes, it's the organization? I mean, it's a house of cards. You pull one of the cards out, it collapses. Why is it so hard to admit, yes, the organization, bravo, great job without them? Because look, bad organizations have been proven to be very destructive for the teams. New York Knicks, we being Knick fans, New York Knicks is one of these organizations that was terrible for years. And finally, because the owner, backed off and gave it the keys to Leon Rose, you see a little bit of light of day. But organizations are great, but so are the players. You have to put the right players, putting the right kind of talent. So why can't they both get the credit? Why does it have to be one or the other?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And the Knicks are a great example that, and everyone knows this, obviously. It starts from the owner, but it's the people who are in charge of putting the right pieces together. And as much as it's up to the players to do well and win, and for the coaches, it's the front office sometimes doesn't get enough credit of putting the right pieces together. It's easy to pick stars, but it's harder to pick the right role players around you that will rebound and defend and hit that open three when they need to. And I think those Bulls were one of the best constructed teams of all times. And obviously Jordan had a lot to do with it, but you still had Scottie Pippen, who is still to this day, I think, very underrated. And Dennis Rodman had, how many games did he have where he had like over 20 rebounds and like 0 points?
A lot of games.
And like look at Detroit Pistons now with everyone is calling for that GM to get fired because they are going backwards in their development. There's like the Spurs are not winning many games either, but you could tell they're like putting together a good core, and they have the right leadership in place. OKC also, they were really bad for a while, but they have a great core. They're actually winning now. They're like top 3 in the. I think they're number 2 in the West.
Tied with number 1 with
as
Timberwolves.
As of now, they're tied with number 1. And it's all
as of now, as we're recording this podcast.
And you got to give that up to Sam Presti, So there's just some organizations that like, yeah, they're not good right now, but they will be good in a few years.
Like the
no matter,
Spurs.
like the Spurs. I think even the Raptors. Might pull it off.
Well, you definitely opened a huge can of worms here. There's a lot to talk about. But speaking of the Detroit Pistons, my God, That organization is such a mess. They lost 35 of their last 36 games. They're like 4-30 something, I think, like 4-38 or something like that.
4. They just won 3 games.
No, they won 4 games.
Oh, they beat the Wizards, I think, actually today. And yeah, they're
What
4
are
and
they?
30. They're 4 and 36.
They're 4-36.
The funny thing is they beat the Wizards, and Kyle Kuzma a few weeks ago tweeted and said, "Don't be that team," meaning Detroit Pistons, and he loses to that team without Cade Cunningham.
Well, I think they were just motivated because of what he said. But the Detroit Pistons also, besides them being a terrible organization, terrible team, what is the deal with them trying to get DeJounte Murray? They're so guard heavy. They have Cade Cunningham. They have Jaden Ivey. They have, what's his name? The guy in the bench.
Killian Hayes.
Killian Hayes. What do
Well,
they
he's
need
been
to
kind of a bust. But
Okay.
DeJounte Murray, yeah, he's a ball dominant guy also. That's why it's not working out with Trey Young. They're saying that he's not going to be a good fit on the Knicks. And I actually saw somebody else today on Instagram. I would give it a shout out, but I don't know his name. He was saying how he's actually going to do worse as an individual production wise if he comes to the Lakers, because the Lakers, their guards took step backwards when they came. Westbrook, D'Angelo Russell, especially when it comes to their 3-point percentage. So that definitely wouldn't be a good fit.
There's something about that Lakers team that ruins point guards. The only point guard that I think can thrive is Alex Caruso. They should get him back.
Yeah, they need guys like that are not ball dominant, actual point guards, where guys who could play off ball and do a little bit of everything, kind of like Austin Reeves and guys like him, Alex Caruso, or guys like Gabe Vincent was supposed to be, that would just hit the 3 and pass it open man, but they don't need the ball in their hands to be productive.
And then you mentioned the Golden State Warriors. The Golden State Warriors, I think Kuminga recently said that he lost faith in Steve Kerr. I think the team kind of just gave up on Steve Kerr. But I don't know if it's necessarily Steve Kerr's fault. I think this team just got a lot older, and the players are just not as good. They lost a lot of good pieces. I knew they're not going to be that good when they lost a few good role players in free agency. And they got Chris Paul, who's really old. Does he really fit that system? I don't know. But honestly, Steve Kerr is the coach that got you 4 championships. Okay? I think it's stupid to fire Steve Kerr. I wouldn't do that. But I do think that the Warriors are just done, and they need to. I don't know. There's something about the Warriors and the Lakers. The Lakers, I'm surprised about them being bad even more, because I feel like last year, after they revamped their roster after the All-Star break or right before the All-Star break, they were actually good. And I didn't expect them to be this bad, to be honest with you. But they just both teams need to make a tweak if they want to have a chance. And the Western Conference is such a mess. You mentioned OKC. And I will say this. As much as I think Denver's probably going to go to the finals, if it's not going to be Denver, I believe in OKC.
Over Timberwolves?
Over the Timberwolves. I've seen this guy, Chet, play. Like when we were watching the Knick game, when they were playing the Knicks. Chet was just incredible in the paint. The way he blocks the shots, the way he puts the ball in the basket. Incredible player just to have. SGA is insanely good. Josh Giddey's good. Yeah, I feel like that the Timberwolves won't be able to handle the Oklahoma City Thunder. But either way, it's going to be Denver that goes to the finals. And Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns are in big trouble. And it's crazy because Kevin Durant, he's going to look terrible if he asks for a trade. And I don't think Phoenix is going to trade him, because if Phoenix trades him, they're going to have to trade Devin Booker. Devin Booker's not going to put up with that. He's not going to stay. He's going to want to leave. Okay? So I think if anything happens with that team, it's going to be in the summer. I think if anything, they're going to try to tweak the roster a little bit before the trade deadline. But wow, you would expect Phoenix to go far, and they're just not one of those teams. But I kind of knew. I had a feeling. I mentioned it in a few podcasts ago. I don't see Bradley Beal being the answer to all this.
Well, he's not the answer, and they shouldn't have got him. And it's actually goes back to that conversation we had, the first topic we talked about, the organization or the decision makers. They did not need to bring him in, and I don't remember exactly who they traded. They traded to get him, if you remember. But that's just a massive contract that is now going to be very hard to move. And if you do move it, you're not getting much back. And he's not bad. Like when he is not hurt, he's still not a bad player. But he's not the guy that they need. What they're missing right now is just is defense, and they need also more bodies in the paint. They're actually one of the. I just looked this up for another video I did. They're actually surprisingly, they're one of the worst fourth quarter teams in the league. And they lose a lot of games in the fourth quarter. I don't know if it's the coaching. I don't know if it's because Devin Booker and KD just play 1-on-1. But they're just not a good team. And I think Eric Gordon is on his way out. He even complained that he's not getting enough shots. And of course, when you have too much of the same thing, one of those players becomes more and more useless.
Well, I want to shout out a friend of ours, Cameron, because I was talking to him, and he said that Phoenix. Well, first of all, I don't know if it's the coach. The coach is fine. I think the thing with the team is they don't have enough firepower, because they have those stars that they got: Bradley Beal,
They have no bench,
Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant.
no depth.
But they don't they don't have the proper all-around team, the proper role players. But Cameron was saying that they don't use Bol actually, and he was saying that Shaq even said something about that, because this guy is really tall. He's a little shorter than Wemby. He could give you like 15 points. He could give you a little more than 6 rebounds a game. It's such a waste of talent. Like, why not use him?
Yeah, when I seen him play, I was surprised that they don't use him more. And I think they did use him. I think he unfortunately got injured the game after, but he's got that raw talent. Like if he plays and he develops a little more, he'll be really good. He'll be like one of those guys, like a Wemby, maybe not as good.
No,
like
I don't think he'll be that good.
He'll be one of those lanky guys who could actually score and play, and they need that. They're missing that.
So I don't think. Go ahead, finish your thought.
No, I think the one guy that is really a standout on that team right now as a role player is Grayson Allen.
Okay,
he's doing a little bit of everything, and they need a lot more of that.
well, they don't have it. They need a lot more. They don't have it. And with Bol, I don't think he's going to be a superstar. Look, the thing is this.
No, I'm not saying
thing
superstar.
Is this. These coaches, these organizations, they see during practice, they're around these players all the time. They know who's good, who's not good. The thing is, I don't think Bol is going to be a star like a Wemby. No way. But I will say this. I think he's not being used properly. All you need him to do is get in there and do his thing. Nobody says he has to be the go-to guy. Nobody says he has to be the superstar of the team. But he's just not being used properly. He's in fact, he's not even being used much at all. And they should try something different. So that's that with the Phoenix Suns.
But going back to the Lakers, though, they're a little under 500 right now, and I don't think that they're actually. I think their record is exactly what their team, like their record matches the talent on their team, And you'll have days where LeBron James will still play like a superstar, even though he's almost 40 years old. And you have days, more days. Actually, AD has been playing really well the last few games, but that's not enough. And like you said earlier, the guys that they got at the trade deadline, which actually helped them kind of turn it around, are all playing like crap right now. And there's calls for people. There people are calling for the coach to get fired. David Ham. They call him hands in his pockets coach because he stands on the sideline with hands in his pockets. But what is it about LeBron James's teams and their coaches that just end up getting fired?
So here's the thing. First of all, I think the Lakers coach should be replaced because I think the talent that's on the team is good. Like you're saying that the record matches. No, I disagree with you. It doesn't.
They're 19-21.
Okay, but I think they should be a lot higher with the team that they have.
I don't think their team is talented at all.
Well, I think they have enough talent to be better than they are now. They should at least be in the playoffs. They should at least be above 500. Okay, nobody's saying they have to be the first top.
Well, who do they have?
They
only have LeBron James.
No,
they have
but
Anthony Davis.
all right, but look at LeBron James in Cleveland. Look at LeBron James in Cleveland. Fine, he's prime LeBron. This is not prime LeBron.
Even though he's been
still
playing
mad
really
good.
well. Yeah.
So prime LeBron, yeah, he had Mo Williams, he had Ilgauskas, he had guys. He had.
What about Kyrie Irving?
No, I'm talking about before. I'm talking about before. Like I'm talking about before he went to Miami. That LeBron, okay.
But that's a different beast, LeBron.
The point is that, and you're saying AD's playing well. They should be in a higher. They should be in the higher seed in the playoffs. They should be above 500. I think the coach is just bad. And then when you're saying what's the deal with LeBron and his coaches, I don't know what the deal with LeBron is. What I always liked about Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant is that they were coachable, and I feel like with LeBron, people will argue and say, yeah, but in reality, I feel like LeBron tells his coaches what to do. LeBron is trying to be the coach. And I feel like you're the player, be the player. This guy's the coach, be the coach. And I think when you're dedicated to your craft, you'll excel at it. And the two of you will coexist properly. But when you try to do too much, that's where you get all, and you might not realize it because you think you're the GOAT and you think you're the best. And it's true. To a lot of people, you are the GOAT. But that doesn't mean you can do it all. All people need checks and balances. Okay? When you look at what we just spoke about Jerry Krause, right? Michael Jordan, he didn't like a lot of Jerry Krause's decision making. But even though all of his decision making was good, and out of ego, he wanted Jerry Krause to draft a certain player. I forgot the name. And Jerry ended up drafting somebody else. But that player ended up being good. He brought in Tony Kukoc. Michael Jordan wasn't happy about it at first. But Tony Kukoc was really great for them. The only thing that Jerry Krause did bad, you see, and this is where Jerry Krause needed a checks and balance. This is where Jerry Krause needed to be under control, where he decided to dismantle the Bulls team and not hire Phil Jackson back for something petty because they laughed at him for some stupid joke. That's where he screwed up. And the owner of the team should have kept Jerry Krause in check, and he didn't. Okay? Jordan pleaded with him. He wanted to come back another season. They could have gotten another championship, or they thought. Like, who knows? But they definitely deserved that chance, and they didn't get it. So everybody needs a checks and balance, and LeBron James needs someone to check him, and I just think that this coach is not the coach to do the job.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of pressure playing in a city like LA. Well, obviously with big cities, but especially when you have LeBron James on your team. That's why guys like Westbrook take major steps backwards, and D'Angelo Russell, like his whole morale is probably shattered now. And I think he's not that bad of a player.
He had a big game recently.
Yeah, I mean, he got demoted to the bench, and I think he's still been playing decent. But their third best player is Austin Reeves. So what does that tell you?
Yeah.
And their fourth best is Taurean Prince, who didn't even get a lot of minutes when he was on the Bucks.
And their third best player should be D'Angelo Russell, straight up. Um,
I think that they have to trade that 2029 pick that they have to get any kind of talent upgrade. Because Rui Hachimura this season has not been performing as well as he was last season.
and our prediction was wrong from a few podcasts ago. We said that Kyrie is going to go to the Lakers. I don't think Dallas is going to give him up.
Kyrie has been playing great. Yeah, I mean, they're only going to give him up if it's something to be significantly upgrade their team. And who on the Lakers will do that for them? No one.
Yeah,
Unless he like really says I want out.
this season has been a little bit disappointing. I mean, not for Knick fans. Us Knick fans, we're happy. But as far as the NBA as a whole, a lot of teams that should be good are not good, right? A lot of young, promising teams, we're not expecting them to go to the finals, but they should perform better than they're performing. There's a lot of blowouts going on.
Yeah, there's been a lot of blowouts. I wonder what the number is though.
Check it out. But a lot of fans are pissed off. Milwaukee's another one. I think Milwaukee's coach needs to be fired because you have Damian Lillard and you have Giannis, and you're underperforming. There's no excuse. They probably need to tweak the roster a bit. They need to get an extra role player. I think Chris Middleton, if they can trade him somehow and get somebody else, perhaps Chris Middleton's time is up with the team. But yeah, it's just been a little bit of a disappointing season. The Phoenix Suns, the Detroit Pistons, the Golden State Warriors, the Lakers, the Clippers are doing surprisingly well.
Well, I think for the Bucks, you could have there's definitely two sides of the argument. You know, they're still one of the top teams in the East. Dame Lillard just had a huge game-winning shot, classic Dame Lillard. Versus who was it against? Oh, versus Sacramento Kings. But yeah, a lot of their games were closer than they should be to subpar teams. Their offense has been inconsistent. And I think it's also largely because Chris Middleton took a big step backwards, just like Klay Thompson did. Like Klay Thompson is cooked. He's done. And I don't know why Steve Kerr keeps playing him so many minutes. I think that's just the mentality of some coaches, you know? They just get into this one rhythm and they just can't get out of it. That's just the way it is. Maybe because he's a veteran. He doesn't trust the younger players as much. But when it comes to the Bucks, you know, they don't give me that sense of like I'm confident they could actually go all the way. I don't know. What do you think? I think the Celtics, if anything, is the Celtics going to the finals.
My prediction for the East is the Celtics. I think Milwaukee
by far.
Yeah, and I think ironically, Milwaukee had flaws. I mean, they lost to the Miami Heat last year in the playoffs. They had their flaws, and you would think, oh, getting Dame Lillard is better, but they got rid of Drew Holiday, and it shows. It shows that they don't have enough defense on that team right now. But
yeah, Brook Lopez, I think, also hasn't really been as good offensively, and they don't have a lot of assets. You know, they're kind of like a better version of the Lakers in a way, where I think they're actually in a better position, but they don't really have as many assets to move around to upgrade their team. So it's going to really be interesting to see what they could do.
Now, speaking of being excited as Knicks fans, I think the Knicks are in great shape. Okay. There's not that much expectation, but they're doing so much better, especially after the RJ Barrett trade. I know we were stuck on RJ Barrett for a long time. We were hoping he'd be our star. And we realized, especially with a lot of the comments we've been reading, that he's just not that star for us. And ironically, when we realized that, a few days later, he gets traded to the Toronto Raptors. Since then, we've been doing a lot better because OG kind of does a little of what RJ Barrett's doing, but he doesn't need the ball in his hands as much. And he'll be like, I think he has a much better field goal percentage, and his defense is pretty wild. All right. He's shutting down a lot of these players, and that's why we're doing so well. RJ Barrett, I wish him best. I hope he does well in Toronto. People are saying that we could have, we gave up a gem in Emmanuel quickly. Notice that they were saying like, oh no, we lost quickly. Nobody's saying anything about RJ Barrett. But with quickly, it's like they tried to give him an extension. He wanted a lot more money. They didn't think it was worth paying him that much more money. So they traded him. And they got exactly what they wanted in OG. Right now, seemingly, I think Toronto got the best of it, but the Knicks still got a great deal in return. They're doing a lot better. Now, again, shout out to Cameron, because he was telling me this. He was the one that told me that watch the Knicks get Zion Williamson. Watch the Knicks get Zion Williamson before the trade deadline, because that's the only thing that makes sense as far as getting a star. No other star in the league is available right now, right? Yeah, maybe in the summer, Kevin Durant or Devin Booker or Giannis, they'll be disgruntled and they're going to say, hey, I want to get out of here, trade me and whatever. Same thing with Embiid, right? It could be any one of those guys. But they're not going to, there's no way they're going to get traded during the season. The only player that can get traded now is probably Zion Williamson. And it's because he's overweight. He's injured here and there. And I think that the New Orleans Pelicans franchise is just getting very frustrated with him at this point. So if they could get a good deal with the Knicks, I think they will send them there. What do you think?
Well, yeah, there's all this talk about how Randall is on his way out, especially that he has a different agent, and that's what happened with RJ Barrett. He got a different agent. He changed from CA, who used to be run by Leon Rose, or he was at least the top dog there. And I think with the way Randall plays, as much as we love him during the regular season and he could, win games for us, he could also lose a lot of games for us, especially when it comes to the playoffs. Today alone, Martin Luther King Day, the Knicks played Orlando Magic, and Randall was way off. And it happens, you have bad games. But Brunson was not playing. And Randall just took, it's one thing being off, but also taking bad shots and not passing to the right to the right man. And that just happens a lot more in the playoffs. He becomes a turnover machine. He's great. I mean, I think he's a great third or fourth option. But if we could replace him with Zion and have OG was, like, as you said, I think a great addition for the Knicks. I think that was one of the most even trades besides for the Sacramento and Indiana Pacer trade. That was probably the best trade for both teams. Although I think that quickly he's not a real point guard. He's more of a shooting guard.
Undersized.
And, yeah. He takes like the most shots a lot of times on, especially now in Toronto. So, they might have to look into that. But I think that Zion, there's all this talk about the Knicks getting a star, and they're not necessarily keen on going for Donovan Mitchell.
Well, they said
Donovan Mitchell said that there's rumors where he wants to play for a New York team. My prediction is that he's going to play for the Nets.
Yeah, if he wants to play for a New York team, and the Knicks there's been whispers that the Knicks don't believe, and rightfully so, the Knicks don't believe Donovan Mitchell is the guy to take him to the next level. I don't think he is. And we already have a ball-dominant guard, Jalen Brunson, so it doesn't make sense. It doesn't even make sense for us to get DeJounte Murray. Now, what you were saying earlier. So Woj, am I saying his name right? Woj from ESPN. Woj. Woj. Yeah, it's Woj.
Well, it's shortened though.
Right. Anyway, so according to him, there's a lot of this backdoor stuff going on, and a lot of these things are already predetermined. We just don't know that, right? RJ knew he's going to leave New York for a long time. He switched his agents from CAA to somewhere else. He already knew he was on his way out. All right, Julius Randle did the same thing, and everybody's saying, "Oh, he's playing so well." Yeah, he's playing so well because he knows he has to increase his value so he could get traded because he wants to get traded. He knows he's on his way out. Okay. And even if we do keep Julius Randle, he's been proven to choke in the playoffs. So what good is it that he's amazing in the season and then he doesn't show up for the playoffs? We don't need that. And that's why I am willing to take a chance on Zion. Now, Zion is desperate to come to the Knicks. He's taking everybody knows that he wants to play in New York. He's taking the James Harden approach by gaining weight and not being cooperative, the way James Harden did in Houston. So it's most likely, and it's such a good way to take a chance because when he does play, he's a monster. Okay, he's just very explosive. The points, the rebounds. He's a beast in the paint. It's so worth taking a chance on him. Okay, I think he's the guy to take the Knicks to the next level because he's going to want to take the Knicks to the next level. He's going to want to play basketball. Woj also said that there's going to be a player that is really good, not necessarily a star, and he's going to, he's going to want the team is going to want to trade him because of luxury tax, and that team happens to be Atlanta Hawks with DeJounte Murray. However, DeJounte Murray, like you said, is also very ball dominant. So I don't think it would make sense to put him with Jalen Brunson. I mean, this is the problem that Atlanta had with him and Trae Young. I think DeJounte Murray should go to the Spurs. And I say this as a Knicks fan. I think he should go to the Spurs. Ironically, the Spurs want him back. They got rid of him 2 years ago. Now they want him back. I think he'd be a great compliment to Wemby. What do you think? Do you think he should play for the Spurs?
I think he'll make the Spurs a lot better. Of course, he has more experience. He's still young. Yeah, I guess he's considered a veteran compared to those guys. But the Spurs definitely need a guy that could throw lobs to a good point guard and a good leader. And if they get him back see, the thing is, the Hawks are gonna want a lot from him just because they know that they gave up a lot and they really haven't gone anywhere with him. But to your point about Zion coming to the Knicks or another star, I don't think I want Embiid. And I know that the Sixers are doing well. Embiid's playing great. But in the playoffs, he has those key moments where he kind of chokes.
And yeah, I'm not crazy about Embiid also. He's also injury prone as well. If we don't get Zion before the trade deadline, I would strongly monitor him in the summer along with Kevin Durant and Giannis. And Booker, even though we have Jalen Brunson, though. I don't know if they'd be able to coexist, but I would totally look at Kevin Durant and Giannis, and I would really go, it's worth giving up all those picks and whatever. And you see, and I quickly wanted to mention, actually, that, yes, we lost quickly, but McBride's a great,
he's still young, and I saw...
It's ironic for me to say replacement because he was always on the team, but now he's playing, and he's doing well. As a starter, he did pretty well.
Well, he's also shooting over 50%, I think, from the three.
Yeah. You said that he screwed up a little bit today in the game, but he's very young still. I think that's something we can forgive. And, if we don't, I think the reason why they want to get Brogdon, the Knicks, or DeJounte Murray is because they want a veteran presence. McBride, maybe they don't trust him in the playoffs, because he's so young.
Yeah, especially after today's game, I wouldn't trust them. I think because... sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think because the Knicks are now in the Knicks are in win now mode. They did a little like youth movement for a couple seasons, but with Brunson and now possibly Randall moving to a different team and getting a star, hopefully, they're obviously in win now mode with OG. So yeah, it's like what's his name, Deuce McBride. He could develop, but I think at most he's going to be a backup point guard. And the only thing is, as Knicks fans, we know like Grimes, he has potential to be really good, and I don't know why Tibbs doesn't play him. You know, there's got to be a reason. I think he's a good defender. He's been playing better off the bench, and like today, he didn't play him. He put in DiVincenzo instead. DiVincenzo missed the free throw. But I wanna. What were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say that he does play Quentin Grimes more than he played McBride, and I think they were drafted around the same time. So,
but Grimes is better. I mean, I think he doesn't play Grimes as much as he should.
Okay, but what were you gonna?
But
say?
the Knicks are also very guard heavy still.
No, but what were you gonna say just now?
So I found when I said earlier that Embiid chokes in the playoffs, and it's kind of a bold statement. There's going to be a lot of people that don't disagree, but I actually found stats that I want to read to prove that he chokes, because we all know Harden's a choker in the playoffs.
Okay, so go ahead.
All right, so with the chance to go up 3-1, Joel Embiid went 0-12 in the second half against the 5-seed Hawks in Game 4. He got stripped by Danilo Gallinari to seal the loss in Game 7. Down 3 in Game 5 of the same series with 15 seconds left. He missed both free throws to seal the game. All of his offensive numbers are worse in the playoffs than their regular season aside from free throw percentage. He has only won one playoff series in his career where he played all 4 wins in 2022 versus Toronto. He's 0-3 in Game 7s, and he has posted a 49% TS and 5.3 turnovers a game in those games. He once got swept in the series despite averaging 15 free throws per game. That's versus Boston in 2020. There's a couple. Worst of all, he is 9-38 in clutch within 5 points last 5 minutes by NBA definition situations during his playoff career with an unfathomable TS percent of 35.7%. So, and we saw it in the last playoff when Harden was on the team, how they both choked.
So you see, every time we say things like they choke in the playoffs, people are like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" There you have it, folks. There you have it. Stats don't lie. Speaking of the Knicks, I mentioned this before in the previous podcasts about Carmelo Anthony and how Jokic is should be the honorary number 15 for the organization. And yes, Carmelo did great things. And if Carmelo or Jokic were a different number, it wouldn't even be a conversation. But they're both number 15, and Jokic has done a lot more for the Nuggets organization, especially that he was an underdog, drafted in the deep second round. Nobody knew he's going to be this good. He's a 2-time MVP. He's a finals MVP, getting Denver there of course he had a good, but people say, "Oh, but he didn't do it alone." Who did it alone? Who did it alone? Who? Michael Jordan didn't do it alone. LeBron James didn't do it alone. Who wins championships alone? Everybody has somebody. And Jokic, he had Jamal Murray, and he had a pretty good team, right? So it's kind of dumb. You know who was kind of alone? Kind of? Allen Iverson. And that's why he lost. That's why he didn't win the title. So, come on. To say that look, Carmelo Anthony, the reason I'm even bringing this up again is because Carmelo Anthony on this podcast was saying that the Nuggets, out of spite, it was a petty move. They gave him number 15 to Jokic, like, here's the number. Why would they do that with Jokic? They didn't know he's going to be a superstar getting drafted in the deep second round. They didn't know that he's going to. And there are photos of Jokic when he was younger and not in the NBA wearing number 15.
Well, that's probably what he meant by that. Like, why superstar now? Why would you give somebody that number? Especially, it's like if you're not going to be a superstar, you're going to be some, guy off the bench, and you give a guy's number like that. That's like he probably takes that as disrespect.
Okay, but obviously they didn't retire his number. I mean, look at Orlando Magic. They're only planning to retire Shaq now. What took so long? Right? Shame on them, actually. The Lakers did it. The Miami Heat did it. Why not Orlando? I think Orlando feels left out. They're the only, well, I don't know if they're the only team, but they didn't retire anybody's number. So it's like, oh, we need to retire somebody. And of course, we got to pick Shaq. He's arguably the best Orlando Magic player to ever play.
Well, what about T-Mac?
That's a different conversation, but Shaq is the best player they've ever had in their franchise. Okay?
How long was he there for?
Shaq? If I'm not mistaken, okay, I got to be careful because last time I accidentally, it was like a brain fart. I said, oh, Carmelo was in Denver for 4 years. I knew he was there for 7.5 years. But check. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Shaq was there for 4 years in Orlando, maybe 5.
92 and 96. So 4 years.
4 years. Okay, wow.
4 seasons, yeah.
Got it right this time.
He averaged 27 points, 12.5 rebounds, and 2.5 assists per game.
And you did not retire this man?
And almost 3 blocks a game.
Come on.
4 seasons is a while, yeah. I guess it.
Denver was probably thinking that they're not going to retire Carmelo Anthony. Yeah, he was fantastic. Maybe one day, I don't know. I just feel like, in my opinion, all right, let's put it this way. If Jokic never got Denver the ring, the championship, right? Fine. You could retire both 15s, one for Melo, one for Jokic. And it's fine. The Knicks retired 2 numbers. One is for Earl Pearl Monroe, and I forgot the other. They're sharing. Some of those players are sharing numbers. So it's okay. But if Jokic is the guy who got you your first ring, and Melo couldn't do that for you, in fact, Melo wasn't even really that close to doing it for you. And what's worse, he openly wanted to leave to New York. So I don't know what Carmelo Anthony's talking about.
I think that they should retire his jersey because, as some of the people pointed out in the comments on our other posts, it's also about he brought them to. He helped them sell more tickets. He brought them back to relevance. They were always in the playoffs. So yeah, they didn't really win anything, and he kind of dissed them by saying, I want to leave. But in a way, him leaving led to them getting Jokic. So but I think it's also him still getting into the playoffs, him being one of the best scorers in the league in his prime in Denver, and him making Denver relevant again. I think that they retire other people's jerseys around the league for like less, so why not?
Well, look at the Knicks, for example, right? Patrick Ewing, he never got us a championship, but you can say that he's the best Knick that ever played. Okay. Yes, we have the 1969 team and the 1973 team. I don't know if I'm getting the years right exactly.
Well, Clyde Frazier was pretty good.
I understand that, but Walt Clyde Frazier was also on a stacked team. That team was stacked. Okay, Patrick Ewing had great surrounding talent, but I don't think it was stacked. Okay, and then you have Charles Oakley, you have John Starks. Their numbers weren't retired. Now, the reason why Patrick Ewing is worthy of being retired is because he was with us for a long, long time. He really tried hard for us. He didn't want to just leave. He led us to the finals in '94, and you can even say that he had a part to play in us going to the finals in '99. But he was a hard worker. He really tried for us. And then out of being emotional and irrational and not seeing eye to eye with the Knicks organization, which he regrets, he says, fine, then just trade me. And I think the Knicks also regret trading him. But that was like already toward the end of his career.
Well, a lot of people say that gave the Knicks the curse.
Right. That was the curse. That gave the Knicks the curse. But
That was the curse that brought Isaiah Thomas.
Listen, enough with the curse. It's okay. Like, we get it. We Knicks fans get it.
We suffer enough. All right,
the Knicks, they were cursed for a long time. Enough.
We suffer enough. I think I became a Knicks fan when Stephon Marbury was there. That's when I started watching games, I want to say. And those were not fun times.
But Carmelo, if he just stayed with Denver longer and he at least took him to the finals, then yeah, you can say he should be retired, But then you're right, because look at Orlando. Now they're retiring Shaq for just being there for 4 seasons.
Yeah, but he took them to the finals.
True.
I think I don't want to say first ever, but they lost and they got swept, but still something.
I don't know. People are like watching me and saying, who the hell do you think you are? You don't know what you're talking about. You don't even watch basketball, which doesn't make sense, right? Like, why would I pick the NBA to talk about if of all things?
Well, they say the same thing about like Kendrick Perkins, let's say. Like, he averaged 2 points. But it's always like, this guy was in the actual NBA. And people assume that we don't play basketball because the way we look.
Which we do, but all right.
Even if you do play basketball, does it mean that you know a lot about it?
But fine. Let's say we never played basketball. Kendrick Perkins played in the NBA.
And people still say, he doesn't get a chance. He doesn't get a right just because he's criticizing Kevin Durant and James Harden. And Harden also choked plenty of times. Now, and he's going to choke again in the playoffs. Watch.
But real quick, going back to Carmelo Anthony, look at his own teammate, Chauncey Billups. He said that Melo never cared about team basketball. He was bummed out when when the team won, but he only scored 20 points. But he was happy when he scored 35 points and the team lost. Like, that's not mature. All right? I feel like LeBron James wouldn't care about that. Somebody, that's why LeBron's a real leader, and that's why LeBron has 4 championships. I also want to mention, because we spoke about Zion Williamson and Dennis Rodman before, I want to talk about this actor, Jonathan Majors. Okay, because he was supposed to portray Dennis Rodman in a movie, in a biopic, and he got fired. He got fired from the MCU, and it's because he was with a woman in a domestic violence situation, and he was accused of hitting her. She was hitting him too, and it became very messy. And I just don't get it. Like, I just don't get some of these guys. Like, why? The reason I'm bringing this up is because I think young men that are in their primes, they have the opportunity to be in a very good position, and they put themselves in bad situations, unnecessary bad situations, and then they get in trouble, and then their whole career is ruined, and they ruin their legacy. So Jonathan Majors, he was in Creed 3. Young guy, 34 years old, Creed 3, MCU. You know what it's like to be in the MCU? That's such a crazy paycheck, constantly being involved with the MCU. Every actor that's in a superhero movie, most likely they'll always be relevant. He had the chance to be in a movie where he could have gotten nominated and even won an Oscar by portraying Dennis Rodman. And in his prime, just ruins it all. That reminds me of actually Will Smith. By being in a toxic relationship with Jada Pinkett. Okay, fine. Will Smith had his, he's past his prime. But in the most important night of his career, he does something stupid. And he ironically gets banned from the Oscars for 10 years, but he won an Oscar that same night.
Yeah, that was funny, to say the least.
Right? It's very ironic. Now, Zion Williamson, also superstar, young, rich, whatever. He got involved with some adult entertainment model who basically called him out for something in public. And that just made him really look bad.
Yeah, and I think
it's unnecessary.
I think he had a kid with her, possibly, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, speaking of kids, there's a rumor. I know I sound like such a Carmelo Anthony hater, and I'm not. I actually am very grateful that Carmelo Anthony came to the Knicks. But supposedly Carmelo Anthony got a stripper pregnant, supposedly, right? Isn't that what we read?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's 100% true, but supposedly got a stripper pregnant. And that's why that jeopardizes his marriage. So it's like, why put yourself in these unnecessary situations when you don't have to? Either way, I said I said whatever I had to say. And didn't you want to ask a question real quick?
About
had like one of those fun questions to ask, remember?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if it wasn't for injuries, who would be let me see. All right, so if it wasn't, I get this is from Ben Steiner. Shout out Ben. All right, no injuries. Who has the best NBA career? Tracy McGrady, Derrick Rose, Brandon Roy, Yao Ming, or Grant Hill? So that's a good question. I would probably go with Derrick Rose over, and then my second one would be Yao Ming, and then T-Mac.
So I was actually thinking Tracy McGrady and Derrick Rose.
So T-Mac first?
Well, no, I was going to say Derrick Rose. My number one guy is Derrick Rose. And then, yeah, I would pick T-Mac.
So D-Rose, T-Mac.
D-Rose for sure.
And then Yao Ming and Brandon Roy.
Well, for me, it would be Derrick Rose. He's the best one. I think, then T-Mac. I would have to go with Yao Ming, then Grant Hill, then Brandon Roy.
Yao Ming would have been one of the best centers because his footwork and his defense was incredible for that time, and especially back then when there's more of that. The NBA promoted more defense and physicality, and yeah, his injuries. But I think they could have even possibly won a ring together, Tracy McGrady, and they're saying Tracy he's one of the best offensive players in the league. But Derrick Rose was a whole different level, youngest to win MVP.
Yeah,
he would have won with a Chicago Bulls team if he didn't get injured.
Yeah.
And of course, Tibbs was the coach. Tibbs is a good coach. He has his flaws, but who doesn't?
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. He's the reason why the Knicks are, I remember his first year he comes in and we're number 4 in the playoffs.
I think this is a side note. I think Chris Paul will never win a ring, even if he goes and ring chases, because like he comes to a Warriors team and they're like the worst they've ever been.
But I don't think that's Chris Paul's fault.
It's not his fault, but it's just funny that every team he goes to, they just suck.
But he didn't say, "Hey, I want to go to the Warriors." They just traded him there.
I know, but it's just like one of those funny things where like he ends up on the Warriors, and you think like, oh, finally, I've actually have a chance to win and compete, and he's either injured, which he is right now, speedy recovery, or or they just suck. That team they just lost to the Grizzlies without Desmond Bane and without Ja Morant. You really gotta suck for that to happen with Steph Curry playing and dropping, like, I think it was maybe 30 points.
Yeah. Well, I think that's enough for tonight.
Yes.
Until next time.